Hi, and welcome to the X22 Report Spotlight. Today we have a returning guest, Dex. Dex is from watchustrade.io, and I am very happy to have Dex back on the X22 Report Spotlight. Dex, welcome back to the Spotlight.
It is great to be back.
Hey, thanks for being here. And I wanted to let's just start off with the Brexit here, because what we're seeing right now is that May continually pushes her, I call it an EU deal, not really the people's deal, and the Parliament keeps rejecting it. I mean, where do you think this Brexit is going? Do you think it's going to be a no deal? Do you think there's going to be a second referendum? I mean, what is the agenda here of the EU? What's the agenda of May? Where do you see this going?
That is a loaded question, but I think I'm going to stick to my guns on this one. Back during the 2016 election, I mentioned that I did not see a Brexit happening, even though on the news cycles you heard nothing except for the bookies are saying that it's basically 100%. It's going to happen. It's going to be exactly what we say it's going to be. And then they came out and said, okay, it's no deal. And then that's when the British pound just got pounded and fell thousands of points. So in this same regard, I don't see it going anywhere. I don't think there's ever going to be a Brexit. If anything, I think the union is struggling to maintain itself anyway. And to me, this is just a byproduct of what's really going on, in Europe at this time. To me, it's kind of funny that it lasted this long without them talking about doing a Brexit, because you have basically multiple countries in Europe that historically have always went to war against each other. And now you have them coming together to form a single union called the European Union. And then not only that, but then they're going to have one common currency, the euro currency. So it's kind of hilarious to see how this project has been shaping up. But to me, it's like a logical conclusion. I think at the end of the day, you're going to have at least 10 countries solid in there. So in order for that to happen, I think that Britain has to chill out and stay where they are. I mean, what are you going to do?
I mean, is the EU going to keep them in there? Is that their plan?
I believe that they want them to stay in there. Absolutely. They look who benefits. The EU itself benefits by adding more members, not having members leave. That's how these conglomerates work. So that's what they want. I don't see it falling apart. Some people are thinking that, this is inevitable, because of all the problems with NATO and everything else. They believe that this is going to crumble and the European Union is going to break up altogether. I don't see it that way. I see more countries being added. I would be surprised if Russia joined the EU soon. And I know people are saying, man, you're lunching, you're out of your mind. They say that to me all the time. But I really believe that we have a strong momentum push to add Russia to this European Union. I really believe it. And I think that, if you add a Russian powerhouse to it, I think it would also be a way to keep Britain staying in it also. So it's just a lot of drama over there anyway, because like I said, historically, you're looking at these countries that have always been beefing with each other and going to war with each other. So this is no different. And now this is just Britain saying, well, we don't want to play anymore. We want to take our ball and go home. But it's not so easy to pull out without having, economic catastrophe, rippling all throughout, the EU. So it's not that easy. It's like, well, I'm going to sever my arm because I don't need two arms. I can do really good with one arm. Why would you do that? Why would you cripple yourself? And that's exactly what's happening right now. And I think the people at the end of the day, the people at large don't want it. You have a minority groups and different, political factions that want to do it. But obviously the people don't want to do it. They would have done so already. And the fact that they can't agree, to me, is just saying that, at the end of the day, they don't really want to do it. And I don't think they're going to do it. Even here with America, the president said, I'm going to go ahead. I'm just going to close down the border. That's easy to say, but extremely difficult to do. How are you going to shut down the border? Number one, there's no wall. And the way that the news cycle keeps running the footage, it's showing that immigrants are just coming in here by the droves any kind of way they want. It's like a wide open door. There's no wall, there's no border, there's no gate, there's no fence, there's nothing. They can just come in and do whatever they want. So to me, it's like an argument about nothing at the end of the day. Congress doesn't want to give him, what he needs to build the wall. And then you have people like Maxine Waters saying, let everyone come in. Let's not have any borders or walls. And all that's going to do is bring down, already struggling economy. Let's be honest. The economy is slowing. Look at the numbers that came out today. That tells you the whole story right there. It was not pretty. It was not pretty at all. And as a result, the market's already given back at least a third or more of its gains from this morning. So this tells you, where we are, not just, in Britain and the US, but just globally. There's a global slowdown that's happening, but no one really wants to talk about it. They don't want to deal with it. They want to pretend that it doesn't happen, that it's not happening. But it's hard to ignore durable goods orders falling the way they did. All right. It's the weakest annual growth in 16 months. How do you ignore that? How can you ignore that? The weakest annual growth in 16 months. All right. So we got to really pay attention to these kind of things. You can't just ignore it, And yes, when you allow massive immigration to occur into your country, without any kind of restrictions, no kind of filters, you're going to put a bigger strain on what's already happening in your current society.
Why
and
is
that's
there
what's happening.
why is there a bigger strain if we just let a lot of people in?
Well, it's a bigger strain because the majority of those that are coming in are going to be put on the system, which is the entitlement program system. They're going to be put on welfare with, EBT cards, and they're going to get Medicaid, which is already a strained system. And that's not adding to the society. It's not like they're sending over doctors and engineers, to the United States. They're sending in people who don't speak the language, have little to no education, and they're going to increase the crime rate. That's what we've been seeing. We've been seeing a lot of immigration coming from Mexico and Central and South America, adding to the criminal gang culture, like MS-13. All right, so that's what we are seeing. I used to hear about MS-13 on the news, but I had never seen it until they start allowing the influx like they did. Then I start seeing the tags everywhere. And I'm talking about not in the inner cities, I'm talking about deep in the suburbs, seeing the MS-13 tags and hearing about it on the news. That's a problem. Just look at what's happening in France right now. Just look what's happened even in the UK. Come on, man. You got entire neighborhoods, in cities that are under Sharia law. How is that even possible? How is that possible?
Yeah.
And that's, to me, the first signs of the beginning of the end of a country or a nation's identity. They're losing that. So we are under a global collapse. It's not a financial collapse. It's a collapse of morality. It's a collapse of culture. It's a collapse in the society as a whole, a collapse in families, a collapse in how people communicate and relate to one another. That's what we are seeing right now. And it's destroying the infrastructure in each one of these countries. France is out of control. It's so bad in France now. I mean, it's killing their tourism. Who wants to go and visit Paris and you have mattresses laying in the middle of the street, and tents and trash everywhere, and people, looting and rioting and throwing rocks and stuff, looking like the land of the lost or something from back in the day, Croft Superstars. For those of you who are in our age group who remembers Croft Superstars
Yep.
and the land of the lost. Okay, so who wants to be involved in that? No one does. But this is what happens when the culture is losing its identity, and that's what's happening here. And I can't believe that it's almost on a daily occurrence now that when we listen and watch the news, we see about what? We're seeing a push for socialism. We're actually hearing an argument about socialism. We even have people running for elected office who are boasting and bragging about being socialist, as if we're supposed to ignore the Tyrannosaurus Rex in the living room. The Tyrannosaurus Rex in the living room is the historical pattern and track record that we have for socialism. It always leads to tyranny. Always.
So why do they want it so bad? Why are
Because
they? I
they
mean,
are
is this all part of
ignorant.
it? I'm sorry to interrupt. Is this part of an agenda to, have illegals come into the country, not just here in the United States, but in France, in the UK, in Germany? I mean, is this all part of a plan and push socialism?
Yes, absolutely. And here's another thing. First of all, let's just think about 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. Would we even be having this discussion?
No.
To me, it's analogous to talking about how good communism is in the 80s. That would be like coming like Ronald Reagan bringing on a friend who wants to speak to the country and address our country about the benefits of communism. It's absurd and ridiculous. It would never have happened, and it didn't happen. But now all of a sudden we're talking about socialism. So we're going to ignore all the facts that we have throughout history of socialism leading to a straight up collapse of society and straight up tyranny. We're going to ignore all the tens of millions of people who were murdered by that socialistic government. We're going to ignore all that. We don't see that. And yet people are pushing for it. And to me, it just shows you the signs of the times. It is, if you ever doubted it before, you see it now. The fact that Americans are pushing for socialism shows you the incredible success that the public educational system has been able to achieve in dumbing down its pupils. And that's what we're seeing here.
I agree with you. I think they've, going all the way back in time, I think the education system was created to get people to believe in certain things and tell them that it was good. I mean, this was about brainwashing them and educating them in a certain way. And nobody did anything about it.
No, and see, that's another thing. I get slack for being called, a pessimist, or a fatalist. And I'm neither of those things. I'm a realist. I tell you what the facts are that we see it today. This is what's happening right now today. That's all we can go on. We have history, and then we have the here and now. We can't talk about the future because no one knows. Anything can happen. But if you look at history, if you look at right now, you cannot deny what has happened and what is happening right now. What has happened is that our American society has been going downhill for a long time. Our culture has been collapsing for a long time. Now we're starting to see the end results of said collapse. After a terrible earthquake, you always see the rubble in the aftermath. That lets you know how devastating an earthquake was by looking at the aftermath of the earthquake, or looking at the aftermath of the tornado or the hurricane. That tells you how bad the storm was, the power of the storm, because of all the destruction it leaves in its wake. And that's what we're seeing now. We're seeing the end result of a terrible storm that broke down societies at large globally. And it's sad because you now have generations of individuals who were never taught how to think, and they can't think. So they actually now believe in their minds and their hearts that crime is good and that we should engage in it and there's not a problem. That lets you know that the rational thinking of the average individual is non-existent. If I were to come up to you with a loaded gun pointed at your head and say, "Give me your wallet," I would be charged with armed robbery and it would be a crime. But it's okay if I tell the government to go and stick a gun in your head and ask for your wallet and then have them give me your wallet. That's called legal because I had the government to do it for me. And they're saying that's legal. That's what socialism is. Socialism is tell the government to go and stick a gun in that person's head and tell them to run me your money right now and give it to me. That's what socialism is. You are by under coercion, under the threat of violence, you're being told to give me your money so I can give it to somebody else. And that is immoral. That is immoral. And for some odd reason, we have our politicians, elected politicians, agreeing with the up and coming politicians that socialism is good. Theft is good. Theft of someone else's property is good. How in the world can you even say that with a straight face, knowing that our Constitution was written to protect property? It was written to protect property, personal property, private property. You and I own ourselves. We're our own private property. Our money is our private property. All right. So it is wrong for government to stick us up and take our private property. I'm not saying that people shouldn't pay taxes, but what I'm saying is the structure of it as it is right now is immoral. It's immoral.
I
And
think,
that's what they want.
I think, I mean, you mentioned the Constitution. I mean, you're talking about socialism. I think eventually what they wanted to do is get rid of the Constitution. I don't think they like the Constitution. I don't think they like people having rights.
No, they don't like people having rights. They don't want you to be a sovereign citizen, a sovereign entity. They don't want that. They don't want you to own yourself and your property. They want to do away with property. See, because that everything hinges on private property. Everything hinges on that. All right? You're not supposed to covet someone else's private property. All right? But that's what we're doing. And that's what we've allowed the government to do. We've allowed our government now to take on roles that the Constitution never intended it for it to. Government was supposed to be small, all right, and limited in its scope, not unlimited in its scope. It's so bad now that the federal government has usurped the authority of the individual states. The individual states in and of themselves are autonomous and their own entity unto themselves. They're their own country. They're their own identity. All right. And the federal government was created for one role, one purpose, and that was to carry the sword. All right. To bring the sword against those that sin, that covet other people's property. That's what they're there for, to punish lawbreakers. Okay, that's what the government is there for. The government is not there to be your nanny. The government is not there to be your thug or your hitman. The government is not there to bail you out of anything. It's not. That is not its role. It's not its job. All right. So we have allowed the government now to take over every aspect of our lives. And all the government has to do now is say national security, which is a huge trigger word. When people hear it, they shut down and say, okay, do what you must. Or if they say, this person is a terrorist, then that triggers people. And now they say, oh no, I'm afraid of that person now. Okay, government, do whatever you have to do. The government is not omniscient. The government is not all knowing. It is not, and is not supposed to have that kind of a role where it usurps the power of the individual states. And that's what we're having now. Even this whole thing with the income tax, as we all know, that is nowhere in the Constitution. It talks about corporate tax, but not tax on, going to work. All right. It's no personal income tax. So because of how everything has been allowed to fester for so long, it's to the point now where it's almost impossible to stop it. It's going to take so much to stop it that I don't see it stopping. I would like to be wrong, but I don't see it. I see that it seems that things are too late because we've allowed so much to happen for so long, and now the people don't even have the will to do anything because they've been brainwashed and mind controlled for so long that they don't even see a problem. Like I said in the beginning, people are calling for socialism. They're calling for theft. They're calling for the government to be released upon other people to take their personal property and give it to them. When they say redistributing the wealth, what are you talking about, redistributing the wealth? So let me get this straight. You're saying that the person who did not go to school of any kind, the person who did not take the time to learn anything, not even a skill or a trade, should make the same amount of income as the person who did go to school and get an education, the person who did work hard, the person who did take risk and start a business and build a successful business. You're saying that this person should make the same amount of money? I think not. I think not. And then they said, well, everyone is equal. Everyone is not equal. The world is not equal. Life is not equal. There's no such thing as equal. Equal, how are we equal? You may be taller than me. So because you're taller than me, do I need to cut your knees off so we can be the same size? It's ridiculous. But yet we listen to these people talk on TV and in movies and TV shows and in universities, and we believe it and we listen to it. You're not even taught how to think critically anymore. And if you do it, it's considered bad, especially at university level. You're not going to graduate unless you repeat word for word what that professor told you to say and believe. You're not going to pass this class. You can't challenge them. They won't let you. You can't say, I don't agree. They won't let you. So how is that critical thinking? How is that teaching a person to think? You're not. You're creating robots. You're creating robots that you can program with your ridiculous information and then have them regurgitate that back to you. And then you go further than that. You program them to the point where they can't even think outside of your programming. They can only function and flow within the programming that you have put into them. So they've made little robots out of people where they can't even think critically anymore. If you speak out against their programming, they melt down, or this new thing called trigger. If you say certain key words or talk about certain facts, it triggers them. They can't handle it. And now they want to fight you or hurt you or harm you or silence you in some way. We've gotten to the point now where you can't even have open dialogue on social media without them saying, "Oh, you just used hurtful words, so now we have to stop you." No, you're talking about a subject matter that we don't want to have talked about. We don't want to go there. No, No, you're believing things that is hostile to our programming, so we have to take it away. So now they want to control speech. They don't want to come to a marketplace of ideas where we share our ideas. No, they want total obedience and submission to the system that they have developed, which is keeping the average citizen ignorant and stupid and unable to put together real thoughts. They don't want that. They want you subservient. And that's why they're pushing for this and making people think that it's actually the right thing to do. And then when they fail at everything that they do, when the government fails at everything that it does, no one is ever held accountable. Even these so-called, you know, elite, you got your individuals with their PhDs and doctorates coming out with these ridiculous conclusions, and they remain unchallenged, and they're being allowed to push these things, and it's hard to believe we live in these kind of worlds where this kind of stuff is happening. But every day I have to pinch myself. Am I dreaming? I cannot believe we're talking about letting drag queens come into your school and read to your children and tell them and tell you about the glories of their alternative lifestyle. How is that education? That is not education. And now they've even went further now, and they're saying that, oh, okay, this person was born this way. You have to accept this. Since when is it anyone's right to tell another person how to think or feel about someone else's private lifestyle? What you do in your bedroom is your own business. Why do I need to be taught about your private business, your personal business? If you have a preference, why do we need to be taught about it? Why do I need to learn about your preferences, your unnatural affections? Why do I need to be taught about that? You don't. That's not education. That's why America falls behind in reading, writing, and arithmetic. That's why we're putting out less engineers and scientists than other countries because of that reason, because of that dumbing down of America.
Yeah,
it's just sad.
It's funny that you mentioned this, is that Thomas Massey, he put out a bill saying that, we should get rid of the government controlling our educational system, because the founding fathers really wanted communities to establish the education format, not the government. And ever since the government has taken control over education, and they tried every, program, with Bush, No One Left Behind, and then we had President Obama with Common Core. If you notice, the statistics have continually been going down, 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 and down. And nothing has improved the educational system. I think if we let parents and communities decide what's best for our children, I believe we would have a country where they're learning and they're absorbing and they're thinking and they're, doing things that we've never seen before. Just like we've had it, way back before there was the government controlling the educational system.
Well, unfortunately, we've allowed other things to come up and to fight against that. We have teachers unions now. All right. And the teachers unions are not going to allow for certain things to come and challenge their livelihood. Not only that, but, these states are getting a lot of money from the federal government, per pupil. They don't want to see that money go. All right. So all these things are coming into play, and the government doesn't do anything that, outside of government function very well, because it was never intended to or designed to do that. So you have a lot of problems with the whole school thing. The public school system is failed as far as educating our children. But there's so many reasons. One of the reasons is, in your public school system, because it's free, number one, anyone can go there. And not only that, but you have a bunch of kids there that don't want to learn. And so they inhibit other kids that are there that who do want to learn. All right. Instead, you got the kids that don't want to be there bullying other children. All right. And what we should do is take out the kids who don't want to be there, kick them out so that the kids that want to be there and want to learn can learn. All right. That's one thing you can do. Another thing you can do is, this whole thing with this with the whole voucher program and having children having the ability to go to any school they want to go to. So they can go to some of these other schools outside of the public school system. I think they should be allowed to do that. But see, again, you got your teachers unions that don't want that to happen because they're looking at their livelihood. So we have a lot of problems with the educational system, and one of those problems is waste, and another problem is the buildings being full of kids who don't want to learn, who are wasting time, and they are keeping other kids from learning who do want to learn. So you got to get them up out of there. It's just what you have to do. There's a lot of solutions that can be done, but people don't have the will to do them. Even with what I just said, as far as getting the kids out of there that don't want to learn, they're not going to do that. They're not going to do that. Another thing is with the voucher thing. They're not going to do that either. They don't want that to happen. They don't want kids to be able to for parents to make decisions and have control over their child's learning. Don't forget, it was Hillary Clinton that told you it takes a village to raise a child. No, it doesn't. It takes a mother and a father to raise a child. The village did not conceive or birth the child. The mom and dad did. So it takes a mom and a dad to raise a child, not a village. All right, that's the way it's supposed to be. But because we have attacked the traditional family structure for so long now, most people don't even know what that looks like. And so if you look at, the figures and you look at the statistics and the facts, it's showing you that the family, the destruction of the family has been going on for several decades now. It didn't used to be that way though. You didn't used to have the number of children born out of wedlock as you have today. You just didn't. You didn't have those things. The divorce rate didn't used to be as high as it was today either. These things are happening because society as a whole is crumbling. And you can only, attack that which is good for so long before you start seeing the ramifications and repercussions of it. Violent crime and stuff is going up because of that reason. All these social programs that the government has instituted has done nothing but cripple and destroy families, not build them up. So I think that, another thing that would need to be done is to do away with them, do away with as much as possible. And then what happens is it has people to then, make better choices and decisions in their life. See, when someone else is footing the bill, people don't care. They'll do whatever. Because it don't cost me nothing. I don't have to worry about it. But what would happen if people had to start paying to send their children to school? But they get to send their school in any school they want. They don't have to send them to public school. I guarantee you people will be more serious about their studies, and parents will make sure that their kids were doing their homework because it's costing them something. You dig what I'm saying? And what would happen? Yeah. What would happen if you started taking away the so-called safety net? It would make people, to start doing things and acting differently. People make poor choices when there's no consequence to those choices. And, and these bureaucrats and people sitting in the ivory towers, these PhDs trying to rebuild and structure society and all that stuff. When their ideas are wrong, they should be held accountable as well. We live in a country that no one's held accountable for anything. They can say and do whatever they want, and no one's being held accountable when they're wrong or when they fail. So a whole lot of things need to be changed in that regard. They're not going to do it. Just like they're not going to abolish the Fed. Forget abolish the Fed. They're not even going to audit the Fed. All Ron Paul wanted a few years ago was just to audit the Fed, and they would even allow that. And they actually voted not to audit the Fed.
Well, I think the vote to not audit the Fed is because we still have so many corrupt individuals in Congress. Most of these individuals are getting free money. They're scamming the system. They become very, very wealthy on this system. Why would you want to audit something when you're making so much money off of it? It's never going to happen. What
That
you
just
need to
answered
do,
my question.
right? But what you need to do is you need to get rid of probably almost all of Congress. You need to get rid of what we have today, because what we have today is something that is not good for the country. The Fed is not good for the country. Most of the individuals in Congress, not good for the country. And this is what we need to do. We need to get rid of all these people, and we need to show the American people who are traitors, who are treasonous criminals. And this has to be pushed out into the open. Now, again, this is a very big thing to do. And this is the only way we can do it. Now, maybe, like we said in the beginning, you said that the economy's slowing and, things are deteriorating very, very quickly. Maybe if we have a collapse of an economic system, because once you have a collapse of an economic system, it hits people in the wallet. And when people lose money and when people see things disappear and when people lose their wealth and their investments, this is when people wake up, because you're taking away their hard-earned money. And then all of a sudden, everyone wants to pay attention. Maybe this is one way of getting the nation to pay attention. And maybe we can move forward with this.
Yeah, but see, that doesn't give me hope, because it would be nice if that happened. But let's be honest. We know these things. But every year, these people get voted back into office again. I mean, you have career politicians like Maxine Waters. Well, she done been a politician for what, 60 years? How is that even possible?
Why, that's not normal?
It's not normal. No, not at all. It's never meant to be that way. But see, that should tell you the mindset of the people, how they have the people's minds. And I have to admit, the powers that be behind the scenes have done this so masterfully, and they've done it on so many multiplicity layers. For instance, as far as the black vote goes, they have totally just lobotomized the black vote to the point where they don't see anything else but Democrat. And that's what they do. They vote Democrat. Why do they vote Democrat? Because they're telling them, we're going to take care of you. You don't need or want the government to take care of you. You take care of yourself. But they have them believe in all the foolishness. Hey, if you don't do this, remember, the white man's going to get you unless you vote Democratic. But let's do the knowledge on this. Okay, so why is it though that all the jurisdictions that are headed up by quote unquote black people, why are there black people still struggling and in poverty and in high crime? Look at Maxine Waters' district and every other person who was black. Why is their city in ruins? If voting Democrat and black is supposed to help you out, why are things getting worse in their districts? And I'll wait for someone to give me an answer on that one. And you won't hear it. It'll be quiet. It'll be quiet. You can hear a lung collapse. Because there is no such thing. So, but does this wake people up? Nope. No, it does not. They still vote again the same way.
Well, I think what happens in that situation is that people are receiving certain entitlements and they don't want the little that they're getting to stop. So what they're saying is, and this might be some type of message that's going out there saying, listen, if you don't vote for us, those entitlements that you're getting, the little bit that you're getting right now, that's going to disappear. Then where you're going to be. And I think this is the way people think, because when you're just receiving a little bit, you still want that to come in. You need to hold on to that, because if you don't have it, then what happens? And I think that's
the
fear.
issue.
Yeah.
Well, it is, because see, like I said, the system, the cobwebs are all over the place. So you just can't remove one thing and say, okay, it's fixed. You got to take away all the cobwebs. See, the whole economic situation is broken because of the government intervening on so many different levels. They've put up roadblocks everywhere, everywhere. Like, why does it cost $50,000 to get a liquor license? Why does it cost $500,000 to get a taxi license if I want to start my own taxi cab company? Come on, this is absolutely absurd. See, that's the problem. The government itself is corrupt. The Federal Reserve is corrupt. The central banks are corrupt. Corruption is everywhere. You would have to totally restructure the entire society just to fix all the damage that has been done. Just taking away people's benefits is not going to help. It would destroy them, unfortunately, because they've been on it for so long, and you destroyed the economy for so long that taking them off, they have nowhere to go because there's no jobs.
So what you're
And
saying
retail
is,
sales have been plummeting, and retailers have been closing up shops. So where else are they going to work when they have no skills and no education, or limited skills and limited education?
so what you're saying is we need a complete reset of almost everything.
Yes, and an overhaul. And like you said,
Yes.
you would have to remove all the current politicians like overnight. They would have to like disappear. Just poof, vanish in the thin air, have that gone, and poof, the Federal Reserve is gone. You have to do all those things. And you figure we've been going down this slippery slope for decades. So think about how long it would take to turn this Titanic. But it's too late, because this Titanic has already not only hit the iceberg, but this particular iceberg has nothing but plastique and TNT explosives on the inside of it. And when you hit it, it detonates. So the Titanic didn't sink. This Titanic is blown up, and pieces are flying everywhere, debris everywhere. No survivors. That's where we are right now. You can't fix that. Only thing you can do is rebuild, but you can't. There's no way to fix it. It's too vast.
I don't think we need to fix it. I think we need to end it. I think we need to end everything that we have today, because what we have today is not what the founding fathers wanted. Everything that we have today was created by the elite, created by the central bank, created the way you see everything. This has to end. I mean, it happened before. I mean, we had a revolution. We got rid of the first central bank. We got rid of the second central bank. There has to be a point in time where we, the people, will eventually say enough is enough. I mean, go back in history. If you want to follow history, eventually what happens is you push people to the brink. And I'm not saying all the people. Yes, there's going to be a group of people that love this system. There's going to be a group of people that depend on this system. But there's going to be a very small group that says no more. During the revolution, it wasn't everyone. It was a small percentage of people. During other parts in history, it was a small percentage of people. And I believe that's where we're headed right now. This small percentage of people, they're going to say enough is enough. And we're already saying it. You're out there saying it. I'm out there saying it. There's many other alternative media channels out there saying it. People on Twitter are saying it. People are starting to speak up. And the voices, they are getting out there. And people are hearing it, and people are starting to say, wait a minute, what's going on here? There's something that doesn't make sense anymore. I mean, if you look at poll numbers and things like that, when Mueller was first doing the report on Trump and investigating and doing all this stuff, everyone was with him. And then slowly what happened, people started to say, well, wait a minute. He's not finding anything. So far, he's found no Russian collusion. There's nothing going on. And all of a sudden, people were saying, yeah, I believe this is a witch hunt. I believe this is not good. I believe this is a witch hunt. And before you know it, the people are saying, yeah, he found nothing. This was a waste of time. This is a waste of people's money. This is a waste of news cycles. This is a waste of everything. And I think eventually the people that are still thinking, the people that are out there questioning things, they're going to say enough is enough. And I think that's where we're headed right now. You might not be able to see it, but I think there's a lot of people out there that are staying quiet. Yes, I know, like the people that you're talking about where you say something and they're triggered. They carry on like babies. I mean, I have children. You have children. You know what happens when everything breaks down and they start to scream and yell. I consider these individuals children. They scream and yell if they don't get their way. They scream the loudest, and that's all everyone hears. The adults are sitting in the back watching this. The adults are waiting and ready to say, okay, we're done here. I'm taking this away from you. Okay, you're not going to have this anymore. You can scream and yell all you want. This is done. And I think that time is actually coming. And I think we're heading in that direction.
See, the only thing is, I would like to believe that, but in the examples you cited from the historical standpoint, everything you said is absolutely true. Those are the facts. But there's one thing missing, though. They didn't have a powerful media back then that was able to hypnotize and brainwash the people. We have a media now, and this media, the mainstream media, even controls now social media to the point where they all agree unanimously, simultaneously, to close people's channels and kick them off social media. I mean, you have to admit that that's more than a coincidence. So Facebook has decided, along with Twitter, along with Instagram, along with Facebook, everything, to kick Alex Jones off, to kick this organization off, to kick that person off. All it takes is you say something they don't like or they don't want to hear, and you're out of there. Even YouTube, they will shut you down in a heartbeat.
No, I do see that, but I also see people that are suspended or taken down. When there's enough people that are saying this is not right, they bring them back up. I'm not talking about Alex Jones. That's a completely different case. But I see others right now where they're suspended, they're taken down, and then all of a sudden, enough people complain, enough people say, no, this is not good. And all of a sudden, under pressure, they bring them back up, because when they bring something down and nobody says anything, it's hidden. They can do it. But when people point the finger, they're exposed now. You did this on purpose. What is the reason? And I'm noticing now that they try to bring these channels down. They try to suspend these people, but a lot of them they bring back up because they're being exposed. And when people who are out there that are higher ranked, I mean, where they're in government saying, whoa, wait a minute. I mean, I think it was Don Jr. that actually pointed out a Twitter account or something going down. He pointed it out, and all of a sudden they were brought back up because they're being exposed. People are recognizing this, and they're starting to realize, okay, wait a minute, we have to be a little bit more careful now in what we do. Before we were able to bring them down, not a big deal because everyone was with us. Now we have the opposite happening where people are actually out there, and a lot of people have a lot of followers. A lot of people have, hundreds of thousands of people following them, and they carry some weight, especially some of the individuals higher up in government who are the good guys, I call them. They carry a lot of weight, and once they call it out, a lot of people are saying, yeah, what's going on with this? And this is when the social media platforms, they fold. Now, the mainstream media, they're still a brainwashing entity. But I notice what's happening with them every time news comes out, they're proven wrong. And of course, they're trying to defend. Actually, if you notice how they're defending themselves now with the Russian collusion. They're not on the offensive. They're we had everything right. No, we didn't do anything wrong. We didn't say anything wrong. They're defending what they're doing. They're no longer telling you, they're defending. They're on the opposite side now.
That's a good point. That is a strong green shoot. I will admit that, and we need more of it, though. We need. I think for me to feel really good about seeing some kind of momentum building from this is when we start telling the truth. If we can, as a country, and even have the government start telling the truth, I think that would heal a lot of the hurt that's out there too, and a lot of the pain. Because right now we're still living in a lie. We're living in a bubble of lies where you can't even question the government. They'd rather just shoot you and kill you rather than have to debate you in open air. For instance, why can't we open up and audit that Fed?
I would like that.
That's not. You see what I'm saying? When I see the day we can audit the Fed for real, if we can actually have an open, real, honest debate about real things that people are questioning, and not just being dismissive with it, then that lets me know we don't just have green shoots. We got a real plant starting to grow. Like, can we open up talks and say, okay, what really happened on 9/11? What really happened with the Kennedy assassination? What really happened with all these missing people, especially from the missing 411 books? Tell us about all these UFO abductions and encounters and cattle mutilations and crop circles. Can we talk freely and openly and have real scholarly debate on the subject? Oh, and while we're at it, can we talk about NASA and can we have a real open, honest discussion? And can you deal with? We need an open air debate. Can you debate some of the leading proponents of the flat Earth? Can we deal with this once and for all? Because questions have been arose to you, NASA, and you've ignored every single last one of them, and even been caught lying about several others. Can we deal with things like this once and for all? When I see that happening, then I know that things are changing for the better. Like you said, we're taking back, our authority, if you will, that we've lost as a people. That's how I know that we're doing something. But until this country can start dealing with truth, dealing with facts, no, you're not born that way. No, there's no such thing as a non-binary person. That is not true. No, you're not born that way. No, no, no. Sorry. Can we deal with facts? No. When you abort a conceptus, that is a life. All right. It's not a blob. It is a life, a living, breathing person. All right. Abortion is murder. Can we deal with that? We can't talk like that because we get banned and kicked off social media, or we'll just be dismissed. That when they don't want to deal with something, they just dismiss you. That person's a nut. That person is out of their mind. Oh, look, we did some digging. Look what we found. Proof this person's a nut. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then that way they don't have to debate you. That way they can just say, oh, you're silly. But when a person has real valid questions and arguments or evidence to the contrary of the status quo, they don't want to deal with it. They shut the person down and they dismiss them. Can we stop doing that? Can we have really honest, open debate, scholarly debate? If I see that happening, I know we're doing something. But until then, I'm still a little skeptical that we'll be able to turn things around. Because as it stands right now, the United States is in trouble on many fronts. Socially, most definitely. Economically, yeah, there's some evidence that's starting to crop up that our stock market is pretty much ready to roll over. And I mean roll over hard, like a giant who just got knocked out and is about to fall. And when I say giant, I mean a person who's 100 feet tall, who is in a ring fighting another 100-foot tall giant, and he just got knocked out. Can you imagine the sound that's going to make when he hits the ground? Mm-hmm. So that's what's happening right now. I think that things are crumbling around us, this social structure. And I think also, going back to what we were talking about with the whole Brexit thing too, I think that there are some entities over there within that whole European landscape that is about to go to war. I think we're on the brink of war. And I don't just mean war. I mean like World War III type brink of war. And I would not be surprised if this time America's not the first one to fire. And so people need to really start thinking about that too. There's a lot of instability across the globe, not just here in the United States, but Europe is there's a lot of things going on right now overseas that I don't think people are really paying attention to, but they need to, because when nations are starving and the society is saying, what are we going to do for bread? That normally leads to war. I mean, doesn't history bear that out?
Yeah, it does. But
when everything else fails, they go to war.
I just want to go back to the Fed when you said, if we can audit the Fed, What is the Fed's kryptonite? I mean, what would bring down the Fed?
The truth. If they were ever audited, everything that would be found in that audit would be their kryptonite. I think one of the biggest things too would be the hard proof that there's no gold in Fort Knox.
So you don't think there's gold in Fort Knox at all?
Nope. That's why they've been fighting so hard against an audit. Why wouldn't you welcome an audit if everything that you were doing was on the up and up?
Yes, I would think so. Yes.
I mean, especially if an audit is something that's supposed to happen anyway as a course of business, why would you fight that if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing? You would welcome it. You would welcome. You say, "Hey, when are we gonna do this audit? Come on over. We bake pies and cakes and muffins. Come on, man. We've been waiting for you. Come on, man.
So
Come do this audit."
Last time you were on, you talked about gold and silver, that it's ready to break out. If gold does break out and gold starts moving up, will that affect the Fed in any way?
It very well could. And I think one of the reasons it's going to affect the Fed is because they won't be able to use that as a smokescreen anymore. See, for the last few years, they've been able to use the golds as a smokescreen because after the precious metals prices collapsed back after 2011, they were using that to say, see, the stock market is strong, our economy is strong, people don't need to buy gold and silver no more. See, look at here. But what's going to happen, I believe, and it's already starting to happen, is that gold and silver is about to explode again because as soon as it's made public, everything I've just finished talking to you, that's when the precious metals are going to take off like a rocket. And they're going to take cryptos right along with them. Gold, silver, and cryptos, I believe, are going to go to such extreme prices that people are not going to believe it. And most people are going to get priced out of the market altogether. They won't be able to even participate in it. So that's going to happen as a result of the geopolitical instability across the globe. And I see that happening very, very soon, possibly before this year is out.
So you don't think the central bank or banks can still manipulate the gold and suppress it?
No. As a matter of fact, there's evidence to say that they're losing their ability to manipulate the gold and silver prices. Yes. It came out, I want to say about a month ago or less, a couple weeks, about up to a month ago. They've been rounding up. They've been on this big roundup of gold and silver manipulators, and they just finished rounding up another wave of corruption. And they took a few Goldman Sachs people and just locked them up. So it's been it's been under the radar. The SEC has been working with the CFTC and the NFA. NFA is the National Futures Association. The CFTC is the clearinghouse for the commodity trading firms out there. So what happens is your NFA regulates its individual brokers. CFTC, they regulate all the exchanges and all the clearing firms and all that stuff, sort of like what the SEC does. So what's been happening is behind the scenes, they've been going up and really cleaning house on people who have been trying to manipulate Forex markets and manipulate futures markets and manipulate LIBOR. So you still have people trying to manipulate LIBOR over in Europe, and they've been rounding those people up. They're not playing. They're putting down the hammer. And what's going to end up happening is once they finish cleaning house, it's going to allow the normal price discovery of gold and silver. And what's going to end up happening is when you see what the price is that gold and silver discovers, when it's no longer under manipulation like it's been, it's going to be fantastic. It's going to make the old highs of almost $2,000 an ounce on gold look like 20 cents, because that's how bad things are going to be on the geopolitical front. You mark my words. There's a strong possibility, but before this year is out, some type of major event is going to take place on the global stage. And I mean on the warfare front. I would not be surprised if it's something so catastrophic that it's going to scare people to death. And I think the only thing I can think of that would be something like that is if a nuke goes off somewhere, and I don't mean in the ocean somewhere because of testing. I mean a major city, because they're bent. You got to understand, there are people who feel slighted. There are people who feel that they did not get the chance to participate in the economies that started, moving back from the 90s until present. They didn't get a chance to really participate in that. They feel slighted by the World Bank and the IMF. They feel slighted, by the central banks, and they have plans. And I don't think that it's going to be very hard for them to carry out these plans. We have too many terrorist cells and too many terrorist groups, more than we've ever had before at any given time in our history. Going all the way back to the 1970s, we have too many factions, too many organizations that are just ready to just go ham. And there's no way to stop all of it. TSA can't catch it all, and not having strong borders, we're not able here in the States to catch it all. It's sad, but I think that's going to be the thing to really wake people up. And I think that's going to be one of the things, too, to help change the system as we know it now. Because like you said, we can't just like flip a switch and the Fed is gone and, all these other things are just gone. All the politicians are gone. We're not going to be able to do that. And like you said, we need to just start anew. But there's too many moving parts that if you did that, you would break everything. You would kill the patient. You know what I'm saying? It's like the patient has a pacemaker and you can't just snatch it out their chest because they would die. You have to first knock them out, put them on an operating table, and go through that whole procedure in order to do it. You have to come at it a different way. So I think that's what we have to do, because right now everything is too unstable. Literally, it's unstable. The signs are all around us every day. There's little hiccups here and little hiccups there, and I think people are going to start seeing more and more electronic hiccups. I don't mean cyber attacks. I mean just little hiccups. Like, oh, okay, credit card machines are down over here today, or this bank right here is having some issues today. It'll be stuff like that, and I think that's what's going to lead up to the civil unrest, and that's going to lead up to, I think, the next big terrorist thing too. They'll use some type of situation going on as an opportunity to strike, and I think that's all they're waiting for is the right moment to strike. And then they can blame it all on Trump and say, see, Trump, if we had tighter border security, this wouldn't have happened. And then he'll be like, you idiots, that's what I've been pushing for all along. No, let's impeach Trump. So I think the only reason why it hasn't happened yet is because Trump is in office. If Trump was not in office, I think it would have already happened. We would be having a whole different conversation today if Hillary was elected. So you guys need to think about that for a minute and what I just said, because I just said a mouthful. If Hillary was to have won that election, all the negative things I just said would have already happened. And you want to know why? Because the people in that camp, the people on that side of the shadow government, are the ones that started all. Every time there's ever been a major incident, they've been the ones to start it. So you don't want Trump to leave office. You want him to be reelected. Because if he's not reelected, it's going to happen. And it's going to happen almost immediately. Because that's what they want. And that's what they'll use to take full control, roll out the 5G and everything else that they've been keeping secret, to build their own control grid, to control everything. And I think at that point, America will probably just shut down and turn inwardly, build a wall like the Great Wall of China, and just never be seen or heard from again. And we don't want that either, folks. That is not the alternative that you want. All right. You want to be able to participate, in a global economy and all this other stuff. You don't want to cripple to the point where you can't even really institute another, a better system. You want to be able to fix the one you got. It's not hard, folks. You don't want to throw away, a Ferrari just because you got a flat tire. It's easy. Just replace the tire. That's all you got to do. Just replace the tire, and you'll be fine. You don't have to take the car to the junkyard and crush it because it has a flat tire. And that's what we got. America is a Ferrari, and all it needs to do is change the tire because the tire we got on it is flat. And we can't ride on a flat tire. If you keep trying to ride on a flat tire, it's going to mess your axles up. It's going to mess your rods up. You'll tear your car up riding like that. You don't want that. So we do need to fix what we have, because what we have actually can work and be awesome. It's just that we have too much corruption in the system. So we need to remove the corruption. And one of those corruptions or cancers in the system right now is the Fed. I think that's the biggest part that needs to be removed. That is the poison right now. You can't build a healthy lifestyle and have a healthy diet if you say, look, man, I eat right. I don't have the skin on my chicken. I have baked chicken breasts, whatever, broiled chicken breasts. I have I have my greens and vegetables over here. I'm even juicing. I'm drinking my juices. I'm taking the right, supplements and vitamins and probiotics and everything else. But at the end of the day, though, it helps me sleep at night. I do have a little bit of rat poison, and I mix it in my ice cream. How long is the guy going to live like that? He's going to die. And that's what we have happening now. We have a lot of good things going. We got a few cancer cells that we cannot allow to metastasize. We need to cut it out, or the patient is going to die. And we don't want that. We don't want to see our country die as we know it, because that's what's happened in France. That's what's happening over there in the UK. The countries that they have known have ceased to exist, and it's becoming something else. So we don't want to become something else. We want to just cut away the cancer. So that's where we are right now. And as a result of that, that's why you saw Bitcoin rally last night, because of everything I just said. There are big movers and shakers positioning themselves for everything I just finished telling you. We got the rally alert on Sunday night when the pulse waves were updated and went out, warning everyone that was imminent. And that's exactly what happened. It's already starting. So this doesn't give us a lot of time to work and put our heads together and come up with a plan to really take back, the country, and to take back the family structure in our country, and to take back the educational system in our country, and to take back the finances in the country. We have a lot to do. We got a lot of work to do, but unfortunately, we don't have a lot of time to do it. So people want to know what we need to do. You just heard it. Dave and I just talked about it. We told you what you need to do. The question is, are you going to do it? And those that say, "Oh, you're so fatalistic and you're so negative." No, I just gave you very positive things. The question is, what are you going to do about it? If everyone just says, "Oh, we agree," but they do nothing, then nothing will change. As long as people do nothing, nothing will change. So you can't get mad when everything that we talked about today starts manifesting if you didn't do anything to change it. What are you doing to change it? So that's where I'm at, man. That's my position.
Dex, listen, thank you very much for being on the X22 Report Spotlight. I understand that you have a free webinar coming up. Can you give people a little bit of information on this webinar?
Yes. Every Friday we do a webinar. This Friday, the webinar, we're going to be focusing on how to benefit and prosper and get ready for the next gold and silver and precious metals wave, which is going to be unbelievable. And if you want to participate in it, there's information you need to know in order to participate in it, because it's not going to be like last time. It's going to be very difficult. So you can register by clicking the link in the description below, or you can go to watchustrade.io and you can register that way. This is going to be one webinar you do not want to miss, and that's how to catch the next gold, silver, and precious metals bull cycle. It's going to be phenomenal.
Dex, I'll put all the links at the bottom of the video like you said. Thank you very much for being on the Spotlight. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Not a problem. Thanks for having me on, Dave.
Thank
you. Be encouraged, my friend.
Thank you.